Dr. McCall?
Yeah, I would agree with that, and just add a few more comments. The um, water is a major component, and as Dr. Cousens mentioned, and from my understanding, I've learned that just as raw foods are important, which we both agree on, there is a thing such as raw water. It's a comparable
Yes.
equivalent, and
Yes.
and the best way to get that is actually free, and from a local spring. And fortunately, Daniel Vitalis was kind enough to put together a resource, a database collection at a site called findaspring.com, where all you do is go in there and you can look up your local area and you can find a spring where you can bring your glass containers. Usually it's not 5 gallon glass containers because 5 gallons of water is 40
That's too heavy.
pounds.
Yeah.
And if it's glass, you break that, you could die because those glass shards could really be very dangerous. So maybe a 3 gallon or a 1 gallon, and you can go there on a regular basis, and it's a really good investment of your time to have this is a high quality water supply that's typically, and most of these springs are relatively, if they're from a local community, they're monitored on a regular basis. Otherwise, they shut them down, so you're not getting toxins in there. And it's this. There's actually a life in that water that will actually nourish you, that doesn't get sterilized, because most people don't realize when you buy bottled water, it's sterilized, it's pasteurized. They have to heat treat it, which is why it doesn't grow green. When you leave it out for a while. But so that's important. If you're not,
Spring water is clearly the best, and particularly within 10 feet of the head of the spring.
yeah. So if you don't have access to that, you can't do it for whatever reason, and most of us don't. I certainly don't. I wish I lived close to a spring, but I don't. Um, or just haven't put in the time, effort, and energy to structure a supply of it. But be that as it may, I haven't. So then you rely on a high quality filter, and then store your water in glass is be the key. And pay attention to the structure of the water. I just did an interview last week with Dr. Pollock out of the University of Washington, who is widely regarded by most experts as one of the leaders in the world in structured water and understanding the physics of it and the science. And it's a real component. And when you if there are simple things that you can do to the water, such as vortexing and keeping it colder to improve the structure and improve its ability to optimize your health. So, those are simple things. And exercise is another element, and it's not related to the food choices, and you've got to pay attention to that. And I really believe that you need strength training on a regular basis. And my new appreciation is this high intensity exercise where you can really engage in an activity that for very brief moments, so like 30 seconds or so, and do it on a repetitive basis, where you get your heart rate up to its calculated target maximum, so which is 220 minus your age, and that's quite a chore to do that. And when you're engaging in that type of vigorous activity on a regular basis, you tend to optimize your biochemistry and most importantly, on a hormonal basis, improve growth hormone, which tends to decrease quite dramatically over the age of 40, and is really important to maintaining health and into your old age. So it's a lot less expensive than injecting it, and a lot safer. So, those are the basic principles. But I think, basically listening to your body when you're, whatever it is, whether it's exercise or foods, and honoring, and actually not so much honoring, but learning, going through the process of being sensitive. Because my guess is well over 90% of the population is absolutely unaware and ignorant of the feedback their body's giving them, because all of our bodies speak to us. The challenge is to develop the sensitivity to become aware of what those signals are, so that you can change and modify your behavior and optimize your health, so that you don't have any diseases or symptoms. I mean, if you have a health problem, it's usually a clue that something that you're doing or engaging in some behavior or some nutrient choice is not optimizing your health. So if you listen to what your body's doing in a specific fashion, that's what we teach in nutritional typing, then you can modify that and really find the nutrients in the fuel that are just really designed for your specific genetics and biochemistry.
Dr. McCall, I want to ask, go ahead. Gabriel, do you have something to say to that?
No, I just think I totally agree. The water, the exercise, they're actually a form of diet in a way. It's a form of bringing energy into your life. And I think the point that Dr. McCall and I agree in, what's in one word, is we are really sacred, unique individuals, and we need to honor that. And if we don't honor that, nothing really works right.
And there's a price to pay. There will be a price to pay, and it's not a monetary one.
Dr. Mercola, I want to ask you, what are some of the things that you would still, after having this discussion and doing some research and reading what Dr. Cousens has written in the past about the vegan diet and about eating, a primary or a full plant source diet, what are some of the concerns that you still have? So in your head, what are 2 or 3 things that you still want to either see more research about, want to know a little bit more about?
Well, I'm not necessarily a big fan of research. Most of it is massively corrupted with conflict of interest, depending on who's doing the study. So I'm far more impressed with objective anecdotal observations. So a clinician who's treated tens of thousands of people in a specific fashion and is not biased in a way and getting results is certainly a powerful set of data to look at. So. But I guess I still believe I tend to still hold this view that some people are designed to eat regular amounts of animal protein, and that if you get this animal protein in a way that is really where the animals are raised humanely, they're organically grown and or given organic foods, and they're not injected with antibiotics or hormones, and they're primarily eating grass, and they're not necessarily an environmental burden, and they're recycling their waste products back into the environment. There's is not as big of an environmental impact as many studies tend to suggest. So I think that may be a challenge, but it's still doable, because it's still a challenge to eat an exclusively plant-based diet, as Dr. Cousens, clearly stated. So you're going to have a challenge either way. So I think ultimately it's just recognizing that there's going to be these issues that need to be addressed, and that when you're honoring your body, listening to what those signals are, if then you can implement some changes to see if they will make a difference. And so in other words, if you're choosing a completely plant-based diet and you're having problems, then you might want to consider adding some animal protein. If you're having large amounts of animal protein and having problems, then you want to consider going the other way and seeing what happens. And I think you're going to be people in both camps who notice significant improvement.
Dr. Cousens, would you like to answer the same question?
Well, I'm kind of agreeing here. I mean, I look at myself being, a football player, heavy meat eater, not knowing a vegetarian until I was 28, and, doing, 100 and 600 push-ups, 601 push-ups versus 70 being a prime athlete, and clearly, a plant-source diet has worked better for me. I think the key is we are unique individuals, but also we have to eat according to our agenda of what our life is about. So I would never tell somebody, and I don't, because I'm going to tell you, half the people who come to Tree of Life are eating meat when they get here, just like, in the movie, Raw for 30. It's like they were all eating meat. Okay, what happened? Okay, so what I'm saying is I will never tell somebody you can't eat meat, because that's not true for them. But I will say, what is your agenda? You want to heal diabetes in 3 weeks? Well, you're going to go live and you're going to do this. You want to deal with cancer? We have the Gerson Clinic, and we have Hippocrates down in Florida, and different clinics. They're eating, the plant source only because there's some tendencies that I think, and I want to agree with Dr. Mercola. The research, I only look at trends in research. I don't say this is definitive, and that's the key, really, what we have to say about the, China study. These are trends, but we can't prove it, and I think that's important. Our clinical experiences are how we have to look. And so we have, Dr. Lodi out here in Arizona. They're going plant source, and they're getting pretty decent results. Okay, good. Well, that's a key. So I think that's important, but my agenda spiritually is going to take me to a different place where all the traditions I know about, which is the Essene Jewish, and I'm going to say the Christian, Jesus was, and his brother, they were all, plant source only people, and also the yogic tradition. So if your agenda is, spiritual and liberation, not that you can eat your way to God, because I don't even get people to think that way, but it supports your spiritual life. If that's not your agenda is, just good physical health, I can't really prove that one is so much better. I can, I can say there are tendencies. So I think those are the key considerations is what is your agenda when you look at diet? If your agenda is a spiritual one, then you're going to go a certain way. If it's moral ethical, you're still going to go more, plant source only. If you're talking about health only, then, I can't tell people not to eat meat. I mean, that would be unethical on my part, because then I'm interfering in people's lives. I can say, get clear what your agenda is, and then get clear what your constitution is, and then you can make it work. That to me is the key, because if your agenda is spiritual, ethical, moral, and you're a high-protein person, which is 60% of the population, then you need to be much more skillful, and you can do it. So I think those are important considerations. Your agenda has to be part of that story as well as your constitution.
Are there other topics that either one of you would like to talk about?
Not from my perspective. I think you covered, the pretty.
No, we've covered a lot.
Okay.
I'm really honored to be able to talk with Dr. Mercola, and again, as the discussion has shown, we're really looking at what's the best, for humanity here. What's the best picture? And I think even though our agendas may be slightly different, our agenda is linked with what is also best and also what is most respectful for people in their individual lives.
Dr. Mercola, do you have any closing thoughts?
Yeah.
No, I would just echo those, and I think it's really the key to basically set your agenda and what your goals are and what you want to achieve with your choices, and be really careful about your selections and making sure that you're going to be consistent in achieving your objectives.
Great. Well, I want to thank both of you for being on this program. I think this has been a fantastic call, and I applaud both of you for being who you are and for agreeing to do something like this, because it's really important and it's for the greater good, and I appreciate that.
All right. Well, thank you for coordinating. I appreciate it.
Again, just an honor to speak with you, and I really I love what you're doing. So it's really
well, thank
good.
you. And appreciate what you're doing, too, to help us understand at a broader level. I'm definitely going to be reviewing the carnosine literature.
It's important stuff.
Yeah, sounds like it. All right. Well, thanks so much.
Well, all right, guys. I've got to run.
Thank you. It's, again, a joy to speak with you, and blessings to everyone. And
All right.
Kevin, good work.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, guys. Take care.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.